Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
In India, campus talent is really glorified, right? I mean, the entire day zero, day one funda is absent in countries outside, and
Right.
it's much easier to get access to campus talent.
This was your first experience of dealing with talent outside India. What were some of your observations about how the campus talent behaves in India versus rest of Asia?
In India, campus talent is really glorified, right? I mean, the entire day zero, day one funda is absent in countries outside, and
Right.
it's much easier to get access to campus talent, premier campus talent, say from an AIM Manila or from your INSEAD in Singapore. The access is much higher. Also, I think the quality of talent in terms of prior experience and the worldview that they come with is also a little higher.
Right.
Obviously, ISB being an
Okay.
aberration here. I think the openness to hire campus talent is much higher in India and give them larger roles, because outside you typically take them as interns and then see how they can grow into something else. But typically there wasn't a lot of full-time hiring that was happening from campus outside.
10 years since you've been engaging with campus talent. How do you think campus talent itself has evolved in the last decade?
A lot more focus has now shifted to the kind of work that people would do, rather than just the brand that they'll be associated with, across internship as well as full time. I think that's one of the biggest shifts that I've seen, and it's not so much also about the money.
What is your favorite question to ask during an interview?
My favorite question would differ from role to role. Back at LinkedIn, we used to ask this really interesting thing about what is not in your LinkedIn profile that you'd want to talk about that may help you get this job, right? My
Right.
current favorite is really for prospective employees to talk about one failure across their career, and what they learned from it and how they've leveraged that.
There is always this debate going around, right? Like, what do you hire for? Do you hire for skills or do you hire for the right attitude?
I will probably stratify it a little bit. At junior levels, I
Okay.
would rather hire for attitudes, and I can teach them skills, because at that level, well, it's it's the ability to learn, willingness to learn, that will really matter. As you go up, you need a combination, really. Like, you would not expect a director to come in without relevant skills and be able to pick it up. A lot of
Right.
people say that it's more attitude than skills if you go up the ladder, but the issue then is, how do you really have someone pick up those skills after like 15 years of, you know and someone also, practically the rest of the function needs to look up to that leader. So without
Right.
any functional skills, it becomes really difficult. But I think attitudes is going to be something that's going to be a common theme across. I would probably compensate for skills with attitudes at a lower level, and more skills and probably some amount of attitude in terms of fitment, etc., at a higher level.
Also, we are in the middle of a Black Swan event, so it will be remiss of me to not bring that up. So, in the post-COVID world, how do you think employer branding, campus recruitments, outreach to campuses, how are these things going to evolve in the post-COVID world, in your opinion?
It would be really remiss of me to say that I really can predict what it's going to look like. But during COVID, there's a huge opportunity, especially for firms that
Right.
are hiring during this period. I think there's a huge opportunity to be able to tell to the entire talent community that they are recruiting, and to be able to send that message out in a targeted manner. A lot of talent which may have been non-accessible to a lot of companies would now suddenly become accessible. Furloughs and layoffs have just become the norm of the day, and presents a huge opportunity for companies like us, which are in the developer tool space, where like remote work requires a platform like us, like be it us or Atlassian or AWS, or Zoom for that matter. All
Right.
of us would be hiring very aggressively, because the the world and the way business is done post COVID is going to be very, very different, right? Now that people have a taste of remote work. Also, I think a lot of companies are doing great work in terms of retaining talent, looking at how compensation packages can be looked at in a creative manner without really monetarily impacting employees. It just builds a really strong top of mind recall for talent when they look to make their next switch, right? Because in times like these is where the true character of organizations are tested, which is why I have huge respect for the Tata Group, right? Like some of those companies take the bar really high when it comes to dealing with crisis situations like these.
As someone who recruits talent, what do you think the talent needs to be doing right now, stuck at home, not being able to go for a job, not being able to really like reach out to a lot of people personally?
So something that I'm a big proponent of is for students to get themselves industry mentors. And that's fairly easy. Because they're in the industry, they will be able to give you more context on skill sets that are desired or what they are looking for in talent that's
Right.
running their teams. That helps you reskill, upskill, all of that. So irrespective of whether the person can help you out now with a job or not is immaterial. But if the person just remembers you, it just helps you in the long run, right? You never know when you
Right.
might need to connect with someone. So the other thing I think is around getting better at your subject, be it HR or marketing or finance or whatever you're specializing in. Because a lot of companies would then see that vis-a-vis the cost that they're paying, right? Value versus cost. Um, so it's not necessarily that just because you're from an ISB or an IIM or a TIS or an XLRI, you would command top dollar vis-a-vis someone who's a brilliant student from a not so known sort of university or college. So given the digitalization of all of this, what has also happened is democratization of choice, and then you obviously have access to more talent. So I think subject matter knowledge becomes super important for someone to differentiate themselves. Uh, and third, really a broader worldview of the economy and the business.
How is it that the recruiters are looking at this situation? How do you now hire? So now then you can't have a set roster of schools that you will say that these are the schools I will be going to recruit.
I always believe that using universities as a filter is a lazy recruiter's quick hack to getting access to talent, right? Because you know that someone would have cleared CAT and hence would have the intellectual horsepower, or an IIT, and you can't go too wrong, right? You know that the person has the raw smarts. Uh, and the chances of a filtering is easier there. But now with a lot of online assessments in place, you can actually assess a larger pool of talent, and which may be a better fit, right? When I mean a better fit, may not necessarily mean that they would be brilliant in the first 6 months of the job. Probably someone with the
Right.
smarts will be brilliant in the first 6 months of the job, but someone who stays
Right.
longer, who works hard enough, who also aligns with the overall culture of the organization. I think that
Right.
is what a lot of organizations are either already figuring out or will figure out fairly soon, right?
Right.
Earlier, when people used to just apply or shy away from applying because you know that, hey, you won't get a call because it's an elitist company which just looks at, universities. Now you know for sure that you still have a shot, right? Because
Right.
the elite tier one university grad is going to ask for X, which is definitely going to be higher than the Y that you're going to ask for. And probably the delta in value that you bring to the table may not be that high. And when you're able to ensure that the delta in value is not too high, then you have a very strong chance.
What are the various aspects within HR specifically uh, that data is going to play a big role in the coming decade?
There'll be a lot of focus on figuring out what roles add value to the entire value chain that a company creates, right? And basis that, the
Right.
benchmarking of roles would also happen, and hence the pricing of the jobs within those functions or roles, right? So that I think is going to be a fairly important exercise. The other is going to be around a lot of those interventions that HR runs today without really too much focus on the ROI. So I think HR will now have to be able to pinpoint what is the return that you're providing on, say, a change in org structure suggestion that has been made. So has efficiency increased? Has productivity increased? This is not like a regular work from home scenario where your wife's working as well, your kids at school, everyone's at home, right? So it's
Right.
work from home plus in that sense, or it's double work from home in that sense, where everyone needs to pitch in with household work as well as then office work.
Abhishek, last question, and this is about the world we are now entering, which is going to be remote working heavy. It's going to be gig based. A lot of jobs that were full time jobs are going to turn into gigs. But how does the role of HR change in this kind of a setup?
The policies will need to be a little more flexible, right? Instead of policies, probably we'll need more of guidelines than policies, really. Because then policies are more enforceable versus guidelines which are a little more flexible. Greater degree of sensitization around how work needs to be managed, and also around meetings, right? I think we do way too many meetings. That will also probably
Yeah.
get rationalized in terms of what really requires a meeting versus what an email can really achieve. I think 80% of our meetings can happen through emails, because if it's just information dissemination rather than a two-way conversation. How team structures evolve are going to change, right? Because team structures will be a little more fluid than what they are now. Um, that will also help in terms of organizations being able to scale up, scale down fairly quickly. You talked about the gig work piece. We see that happening even now in India, right? Um, you see that happening very, very frequently. So again, that allows for companies also to have more flexibility in terms of fixed cost.
All right, Abhishek, thank you so much for doing this with us. We really appreciate you taking our time and telling us so much about your career journey and also what can help students today do better in their careers. I hope you had a good time as well, Abhishek.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kunj. Thanks for having me.